Ben, Kev, we don't have beers.
All right, next time that's happening.
We got to get beers next time. Hey, how about those Braves? A 500 ball club we're talking about, Ben.
Yeah, 500 ball club. Let's not freak out, but we're talking about a relevant baseball team in July for the first time in 3 years.
It's been a while.
So that's good stuff. And we got the trading deadline coming up in 2 weeks. And a lot of decisions to be made between now and then. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Hello, thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, we are here at Baseballism. Hey, if you get a chance, check out their website, baseballism.com. They've got this great newsletter you can sign up for, and you can actually go out and get advance notice on new releases. You can get little coupons, gift cards as well. So baseballism.com, hop on there and check out their newsletter. It's full of great stuff, and you will not be disappointed. Question number one coming in already, Ben. Do we think the Braves will trade for a starter?
Yes.
You do?
I do. When is the question?
Yeah.
Look, the Braves need a starter. That might happen at the trade deadline. That might happen sometime during the offseason. So I expect the Braves to be going to spring training next year with a brand new number one starter. Well, I don't know if Tehran is here or not. I don't know about some of the other young guys and how they get shuffled into the pack, but I do think that they will find someone else whom they view as their top line guy, their number one guy. And guys like Tehran and whomever else is here kind of fall into the mix after that. But I do think that's going to happen. The question is when. And if you can do that at the trade deadline, and it makes the most sense for you to do it at the trade deadline, you do it. If it doesn't work out and you feel like you want to go to the off season and make a trade then, maybe a winter meetings deal, you do it then too. But I think that's 100% something that's going to happen over the course of the next 10 months. And I hope it opens over the course of the next 2 weeks. But it'll be a lot of fun for us to talk about.
Someone asked about the names. You know, Chris Archer's name has been one that keeps popping up. But when you look at the standings, those Tampa Rays are hanging around making things interesting. I can't see Archer being dealt anytime soon.
If I'm the Rays, I'm holding on to him because they're making a charge in the East. They're within, 3 games of the Boston Red Sox. So some of the other names that come to mind, Garrett Cole's name is a very interesting name. Sonny Gray's we've talked about 100 times. That's a very interesting name. The reason those are interesting names is because they're still controllable for the next few seasons. Those guys are arbitration eligible, I think, after 18, and I don't believe they're free agents until 2020, both Gray and Cole. Marcus Stroman is a very interesting name. I think anybody who's property of the Toronto Blue Jays right now is going to be dealt. That's going to be a team that might just have themselves a fire sale. Donaldson, Stroman, Bautista perhaps. There are plenty of names that they have that could be going elsewhere because they're in dead last and it's not worked out for them in Toronto. And I'm interested to see if the Braves are going to be in the sweepstakes for any of those guys.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and as we have talked about on Braves Wrap Up a number of times, this could be a really crazy trading deadline for the Atlanta Braves. You're talking about a team that through 90 games is a 500 ball club. With this second wild card, teams get a chance to stick around this thing a lot longer than they used to. So I think the Braves, if they continue playing as well as they have, really going back to May 12th, and the only reason I remember May 12th is because that's my anniversary. So that's the only way I remember May 12th. But since May 12th, 34 wins, second most in the National League. So they've been one of the better teams in baseball for the better part of the last 2 months. So, I think that if you're the Braves, you really have to start thinking about, okay, we can move some guys, but we can also bring some guys in that help us fill some needs that we have, some voids. So, while they could sell some guys, they could also be buyers as well. It's going to be very, 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 very different than we've seen the last couple seasons.
And you have time.
Yeah.
I know that when it comes to our post-game show and our wrap-up show, we take callers and tweets, and people, I've heard from people who don't want to break up the plan in terms of selling off guys like Phillips and Adams and maybe a Markakis or a Tehran. There are plenty of people who want to stick to that plan, become sellers, and bring in the guys that'll go to the farm system. I've also heard from people that say, let's hold on to these guys. Let's wait and see how this thing plays out. My whole opinion on it all is you still have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's whatever you can get for Matt Adams right now, whatever you can get for Brandon Phillips right now, you'll be able to get in 2 weeks, maybe more. I feel like those guys will have just as much interest in 2 weeks as they will right now. So I'm not saying don't stick to the plan and abandon what you've been doing. I'm also not saying hold on to everybody because the Braves are going to the playoffs. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think it's worth your while to see what happens in these 3 games versus the Cubs. This is a big series, 2 teams that are right at 500. Cubs are game over, Braves at 500. And then you hit the road to see the Dodgers, the best team in baseball. You take on the Diamondbacks again, a team that you're trailing by 7 games in the wild card. Then you take on the Phillies, a 4-game series, if I'm not mistaken, in Philadelphia against a really bad team.
Bad team.
So you go into that Philly series. What if you take 2 of 3 against the Cubs? What if is it 4 in LA?
4 in LA.
What if you split against LA? And what if you take 2 out of 3 against Arizona? And maybe you're within 4 or 5 games of Arizona. Maybe you're within 4 or 5 games of Colorado. I think it's worth your while to say, okay, who are our long-term solution guys? Who are helping us right now? And let's try to find a way to do what we need to do that makes sense business-wise to stick to the plan, but also continue to go for this. If you're within 4 or 5 games of the trade deadline, I say you go for it. And that means maybe not a full-on fire sale, but I think there are some very, very intelligent trades you can make, trades that make sense for not just this season, but for the long run. The Braves aren't going to be grabbing any rentals.
No.
You're going to be obtaining guys who are controllable for the next 2 or 3 years. So it's a fascinating set of circumstances, and I think the next 2 weeks are going to be a copy, and the guys are going to be under the magnifying glass. And what they do, we're going to be talking about for a long time, because I've said this on the wrap-up show. What the Braves decide to do, the decisions they make in the next 2 weeks, doesn't just shift what this franchise is going to be doing for the next 2 months. This changes everything for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Because, Kevin, if you go grab a big-time pitcher, how many prospects are you going to be giving up? 4 or 5?
And top prospects, too.
Right,
We're not
top
talking
prospects.
mid-range prospects.
The market was kind of set with the Jose Quintana deal.
Yeah.
Cubs gave up 4 big prospects for him. And if I'm another team and I'm holding on to a pitcher the caliber of a Quintana, I'm saying I want the same kind of deal that they got. I want 3, 4 your best prospects if I'm going to be giving up a pitcher who's my best pitcher, A, and B, someone who's controllable for the next few years.
By the way, this is Have a Beer with Ben and Kev. We do have beers. Thank you to our dear friend Jason.
Jason
We dropped them
Gorman
off.
over here.
Jason Gorman is our hero. So if you would like, what is it, about 2:45 in the afternoon, feel free to crack open a beer and talk a little baseball with us.
This is Terrapin Hopsecutioner.
This is good stuff.
It's tasty stuff.
Yeah, really good. Hey, so a lot of folks have asked about Ronald Acuna. He has been the story we've followed since the start of the season, really since the end of last year, and his progression he's made. He's up to AAA. He's played a handful of games now. When do we think we could see Ronald Acuna? And I think the answer to that question really depends on what happens over these next few weeks as far as what the Braves do between now and the trade deadline. Be curious to see what you think as well. But, if the Braves dealt a Nick Markakis or if they dealt a Matt Kemp, could we see Ronald Acuna thrown into the mix?
Ricky Mast.
Hey, we got Ricky Mast stopping by, too. Ricky Mast is here. Come on by. Come on.
Ricky,
let's
come say hello.
Ricky, come say hi to all the fine folks.
Is this Have a Beer with Ben and Kev?
We're having a beer. This is Ricky Mast. You guys, Braves fans will remember Ricky Mast.
Will they?
They will.
Okay.
From the
Might not
fan
recognize
cave. You might not recognize him, but from the fan cave way back when, he did those crazy songs, Teach Me How to Huddy. And
Oh,
what
yeah.
What was the other ones?
It's been so long. There was something about Go Yickety, I think.
Yeah,
That
the
was one.
Yickety
Yeah.
song. Yeah.
His greatest hits.
Ricky Mast
Yeah.
is in the house.
Yeah, right up there with the Eagles' greatest hits. What are y'all drinking?
Hopsecutioner.
Delicious.
Hopsecutioner, yeah,
Delicious.
Pretty good stuff.
Okay, well, I'll let you get back to your
All right, I'll
show.
We got work to do. Get out of here. Okay, Ronald Acuna. Could we see Ronald Acuna in Atlanta this year? I say yes.
Yes.
What say Ben Ingram?
I'm going at the latest September. We've been saying this since March. We heard John Coppola say it himself that he'll be a young big leaguer.
Yeah.
What that meant to me was we could see him this year as a September call-up. Now, the way that he has played has been better than we thought that he would be. We'll see what happens with Kemp and the Markakis. If one of those guys were to be traded, I expect him to come up pretty soon. But I do think we'll see him in September. You would not bring him as quickly through the system as you have if there was not some plan for him to see the big leagues, at least for a little bit this year.
Right.
So I do think we're going to see Ronald Acuna this season in the big leagues. I think we'll see him in September, but there is a chance we could see him before then. He's played that well. What you have at AAA is extremely rare, folks. You have a 19-year-old in Acuna and a 20-year-old in Albies, both at AAA. I spent 4 seasons broadcasting AA baseball, and it was rare to see 19 and 20-year-olds in AA, much less AAA. So these two guys, I believe, are on the radar for guys we could see this year. Acuna could be dealt in a deal. I think if there's any kind of deal where you're talking about 3-4 prospects for a pitcher, I think he's probably the top prospect that gets sent another way. I would like to see him here. I'm a big Ozzie Albies fan.
You meant Albies,
I meant
right?
Albies.
I was going to ask
not
you about
Acuna.
that. Yeah. Acuna's not going anywhere.
No, I think that Albies, if there is a trade, he would be the headliner prospect who would be traded in that deal. I would love to see him at second base here. I think if the Braves trade Brandon Phillips, I think you got some really good options at second base. 2 guys are already here in Camargo and Rodriguez. But I also think that Ozzie Albies, to be hitting 290 as a 20-year-old in AAA, to me that's mind-blowing. I think that anyone who's trying to say this guy is going to be X, Y, or Z, I think you're wasting your time. I don't think that it's fair to set a ceiling for a kid who's in AAA at 20 years old playing as well as he is. We're just grazing the surface on Ozzie Albies, in my opinion. And I'd say the same thing about Ronald Acuna. So I'd like to see them both here, but I do understand that it takes giving up something to get something. And if you're going to see a trade, if you're going to have a Gray, an Archer, a Stroman, Cole come over here, it's going to be Albies and others. That's my expectation.
I agree with that. Look, it's not that the Braves are giving up on Albies or they don't like Albies. But listen, to get something good, sometimes you have to give up something good. But let's just clear every time. But let's just, well, not necessarily. Some of the moves the Braves have pulled off here lately.
That's actually a good point.
You don't always have to give up something really good. But look, Acuna's not going anywhere. The Braves are really excited about him. Chipper has been glowing about this guy since last spring training. That was his guy to keep an eye on last season. He hasn't disappointed. So Ronald Acuna, I think we could see him at some point between now and September, if not before, if not in the month of September. So folks are asking about the starting pitching, Verlander and Fulmer. Of the two, to me, in my opinion, obviously Verlander's the guy, but Fulmer's a really interesting guy as well because obviously he's not owed nearly the contract of Justin Verlander and probably wouldn't cost nearly as much to get either.
I know that there are rumors this time of year. When it comes to the Tigers, I'm going to have to see it to believe it. They had a closed-door meeting right after the All-Star break, and they're really trying. They've been a hotter team lately. The Central is still kind of up for grabs. I know they have a lot to make up, but I have to see it to believe it. The Tigers have a good thing in Fulmer.
Yeah.
He's young, team-friendly deal. He's controllable for a long time. You're not paying him anything. If I'm the Tigers, I want to hold on to guys like that. Verlander's a different story, but at the same time, it's not as easy as saying, "Hey, Justin Verlander has a contract. We'd like to ship somewhere else. We'd love to move on." He has a full no trade. He would have to agree to come here. He would have to agree to go somewhere else. I also keep in mind that he and Kate Upton have a home in Los Angeles. Dodgers are looking for another starter.
Boy, can you imagine that rotation?
Yeah, well, if anybody's going to pull it off, I think it's going to be the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So I know that they like what they've seen out of Alex Wood, but at the same time, I think they want someone else besides Wood and Rich Hill to go along with Kershaw. They want a number two who's maybe a little bit more playoff savvy than Rich Hill and Alex Wood. That's where I think the Verlander stuff is interesting. I think that he would waive his no trade to go to L.A. I don't know that he would waive his no trade to come to Atlanta. I don't know his thoughts on Atlanta or the situation here or if he wants to be here full time. But I know that in years past and this season, Justin Verlander has gone on record as saying it's very interesting to him and very attractive to him to be a full-time, lifelong Tiger. I think there's something meaningful to that, to the way that Chipper was here, the way that Jeter was in New York. I think there's something about that that's very appealing to Justin Verlander. So he's going to have a decision to make if that's something that they want to do. If he ends up here, I'd be shocked if Justin Verlander ends up in Atlanta Brave.
Me too. Hey, McGregor, Mayweather prediction. What do you got?
Heart says McGregor, head says Mayweather.
It's tough to go against Money Mayweather.
I don't know how you're going to hit him.
I wouldn't want any part of going in the ring against any of those guys. I watch boxing matches, and these guys get hit 400 times. I would literally be hit once, and I'd be asleep. I mean,
yeah. We can test that theory out now if you'd like.
I'd rather not. I'd rather not.
You're the last person with our organization that I want to punch. How about that?
Me?
The last person.
I'm the last one?
Last one.
I'm not going to ask you who the first five will be.
I'm not going to tell
it. Meanwhile, let's get back to baseball. Camargo. Let's talk about Camargo for just a minute and how well he has been doing it. I mean, it's just been unbelievable the way the Braves have given him this opportunity, and he has taken it and hit the ground running, and he has gotten even more playing time. So good for Johan Camargo, a guy that I think we all felt like his bat was just about Major League ready. Glove needed some work this spring, made some errors that you probably didn't want to see, but he's turned things around, and he's been unbelievable.
He's been so good that I'm thinking about him at shortstop long term. I really am. And not to make decisions right now and really not to make an opinion right now, but his arm is really good. I think he has a better arm than Dansby. I think his range is a little bit better than Dansby. I'm not trying to move Dansby along anywhere else. I want him on this team. I want him in the clubhouse, and whether he's a second baseman or a shortstop, whatever, I want to see him here. But Camargo has been good enough where I think if if you're emotionally attached to a player at a certain position, I think you have to detach from that and think about what's best for helping this ball club win.
Yeah.
What gives the ball club the best opportunity to win. And we've seen a lot more of Camargo at shortstop here lately than I think any of us thought that we would. I think we all thought that Dansby was going to get the ball on this and run with it, but at the same time, Dansby hasn't done anything to lock down that job.
Right.
And he's had some errors here over the course of the whole season, but really here lately that it just, come on. Some plays that you want to see made. Now, Camargo is not, he's not a perfect fielder, but his arm makes up for a few things here and there. He had a play at third base the other night. I think this was Friday night against the Diamondbacks. There's a ball at the third base line. He charges, maybe in 2-3 steps. Ball comes up on him, in the glove, pops out, rolls up against his shoulder. He stays with it, and his arm allowed him to make the play. Still got it out at first base. He's got an absolute cannon. So I think that he's in the mix somewhere, second, short, third. He can play all those positions. And I want him here for a while. I'm a very big Camargo guy. I'm very impressed with what we've seen out of him. Looks like a big leaguer, carries himself with a lot of confidence, and I want to see him here for a long time. Somebody asked about Jurickson Profar, and the Rangers would probably be looking to make a deal. I think they'd like to grab a pitcher. Maybe that's Jaime. Jurickson Profar's never really done much average-wise. He's got some power, but he's still a guy developing into his own. So if you make that deal, to me, that bumps the needle a little bit. But I don't think that you say, hey, we're bringing on a guy who goes right into our lineup and immediately becomes a huge success story in Jurickson Profar.
It's a fun time of year, isn't it?
I love this
names
time of
all over. I mean, we're talking Jaime Garcia, Julio Teheran, Brandon Phillips, just to name a few. I mean,
90% of the stuff that we talk about, rumor-wise, won't even come to fruition, but that's fun, is trying to break down what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
what do you enjoy more, this time of year or the hot stove in the off-season right around the winter meetings?
This, because you got baseball on top of it.
Yeah.
Hot stove is fun, but there's no urgency to grab your guy because you want to have him in your lineup tomorrow.
Right.
I'm excited to see the hot stove stuff and see who goes where, but I'm more along. I like this time a little bit more because you're going to see that guy in the new uniform the next day and playing on the field with that ball club the next day.
Why haven't they traded for Tebow? Really?
I think he is hitting like 320.
Yeah, he's been swinging the bat well in A-ball, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. What's behind the Rockies' struggles with their pitching holdout? I'm very curious about both the Rockies and the Diamondbacks out there in the West. Those teams are going to beat each other up in the second half. I don't know that they have enough of what it takes to get to be where they want to be at the end of this season, but you know what? You got to give them credit. They have moved in the right direction. They've got off to great starts, so their future looks extremely bright, both in the desert and in the mountains as well.
I'll be interested to see which of those teams makes a move. Because, look, L.A. turned on the burners and left those two teams. The Dodgers are going to win that division, barring an absolute collapse of biblical proportions. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Dodgers are going to add another pitcher, and I think they've got a fantastic lineup and a great core and a good manager there in Dave Roberts. And they got the best pitcher in the world and a really good bullpen with a good closer. So they got all the elements. When the Rockies and the Diamondbacks are in the picture, I think you're wondering, okay, are those teams feeling like they're in this thing, or do they think that they're sliding it up and maybe they're getting a little bit sheepish when it comes to making a move? I think both those teams will look to make a move. The Rockies' starting pitching has been kind of up and down. They've got so many young guys who are talented, but they've had their struggles. And that's a ball club that can hit, and you got a great lineup. I mean, you start things off with an MVP candidate, Charlie Blackmon. You got Arenado in there and others. And Arizona has not been healthy. I'm interested to see how Arizona looks once they get Tomas back, see if they make a move to grab another bat. But it's some interesting stuff with the wild card. Somebody asked about R.A. Dickey and what his future is with the ball club. I think that's an interesting question because you could see him being traded.
Yep.
I could see where teams, Kevin, would have some there would be an appeal to go grab someone like R.A. Dickey. But at the same time, he's done so well, and you could bring him back next year with a team option. You don't want to overload on all these young guys coming up. You still need some veterans. And I could see where R.A. Dickey could fit into the mix a year from now. But some decisions to make over the next few weeks with him.
Well, with $8 million option for next year, price of starting pitching, I think it's hard to not bring a guy like R.A. Dickey back next year, especially with as productive as he has been. Certainly a fun time of year. It's great to always be here at Baseballism. I've got to almost run here shortly and go do a call-in with one of our affiliates.
We got to go do some work.
Got to do some investigative research down in the clubhouse as well. Again, Baseballism, baseballism.com. Go check them out. Sign up for the newsletter. You'll get all the coupons and the little gift cards, and they'll give you updates on when the new stuff's coming out. So baseballism.com. We are here a couple times a month, and we'll do this again real soon. Between now, hopefully, well, I guess I don't know if we'll be back between now and the trade deadline, because we'll be on the road. We'll be out west. So we'll talk to you on Twitter, Ingram Radio, at Kevin McAlpin, and we'll
680thefan.com.
680thefan.com.
680thefan here in Atlanta.
And of course, you can always find these videos on there as well. So we will talk to you soon, and enjoy the series against the Cubs. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait. Big series, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.